I guess just to kind of summarize how I really feel about this, going back to just that spectrum or continuum of like human thought, I think so humans start thinking, working together. We start with the most pure kind of religions. It's just like, I mean, I'm not a historian. I don't know this, but I'm pretty sure the way it works is like we started pretty much like we worshiping fire or something like that, or worshiping God. Basically, this and as soon as we started thinking, I think we were very religious a while ago. Okay, let's simplify it. As humans have gone over time, I think we've become less religious. Is that true?
Yeah.
I think the more
I don't have enough information to validate that viewpoint. That's where I'm gonna stand on that, because like I do think that as humanity has gone on, there has like more religions have become mainstream through like the internet, like the sharing of knowledge and sharing of ideals through a more widespread net of. Originally, it was like the Silk Road. Not originally.
Dude,
like,
I love Silk Road.
My favorite internet.
Yeah.
like knowledge was passed through the Silk Road, and that's how religion was spread across Asia. So I do think as humanity has gone on, I think religions have almost homogenized with each other. So it used to be like, oh, this country is this religion, where that can still be the point, that can still be the case in some places. Like this town is like this predominantly this religion, or America as a whole is predominantly this religion. But I think the ability of people to move and the sharing of knowledge and ideals through the internet, since it came about, has homogenized religions to the point of where like one place isn't.
Can I just finish my point?
Yeah. Sorry.
Completely off topic.
Yeah.
My point really was just that to me it seems though the more intellectual we become, and populations that are more intellectual deviate from religion more. That appears to be a general trend that I've found.
That is something that I am not necessarily able to agree with, because there is the curious thing where throughout the 20th century is a major one I'm calling to. I don't know specifically the prevalence of it today, but many major scientists have gone into religion later in life. Einstein, for example. They become religious towards the end of their careers and lives. And whether this is just, some search for eternity, or if there is something in their research, and obviously, but I think I think I saw something where the scientific community is actually rather 50-50 on whether they're religious or not. Which I think people don't expect.
Mm-hmm. But I wonder, does he go to religion and he says, okay, actually, I do believe in God? Or is he going to religion because he says, okay, I think this is a useful way to live? Because I think there's a big distinction there. What I'm trying to say is, if you go all the way intellectual, I think you can get to this point of like, yeah, free will doesn't make sense. God doesn't really, like, there's things that don't really make sense, but I can see their utility. So that's why like I feel like I know a lot of people even at this school that are like really critical of religion. There's like a lot of people that'll say like religion is completely stupid and useless. It just creates division. It just creates hate. And I would argue that's not true. I think that if you look at it through the right lens of it unifying people, and I think bringing people together, giving people a common basis, and giving people answers to things, I think it can be extremely helpful.
Totally.
But I still try to look at it from this realm of I can logically go through and say, I can't logically find a path to it, but that doesn't make it necessarily wrong. Or I can logically see how it could be helpful, even though it's an illogical basis. I'm just trying to make the point generally that I think if you go super far in the logic scale, I don't know how you can still have the same belief in God, for example. Because I feel like if you're really going with the pure science, I just want to figure anything out, I don't think you can figure anything out in religion.
Well, I'm having a problem with you constantly trying to like qualify like, oh, on this scale from religion to logic or whatever you're doing. I'm having a problem with you putting stuff down on a scale, on paper.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you do that, it's lost something. It's lost some meaning. You're now assigning it a value, which could be correct. It could be the proper place for it on this scale, but the act of putting it on the scale is taking away a quality of it. Like if
But that's everything we do. Anytime you put anything on a scale, you're taking away the full picture. You're just saying, okay, we're going to take some aspect of it. We're going to put it on a scale.
Yeah, but you're still losing an aspect.
Yeah, but I'm trying to make the argument that we're not losing an essential aspect that makes putting on a scale useless. I'm trying to say that, okay, if you put it on a scale, maybe there are conclusions we can draw from it, or we can help guide us in the right direction.
Let's say
I'm not saying I'm encapsulating everything about every religion and way of thinking by putting it on a linear scale.
No, I think
I know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make
Yeah.
a counter argument to like putting stuff on a scale loses like an essential quality. If I'm just gonna do like shapes and like boxes. Say you have three boxes. Say you have 3 boxes. One has 5 pyramids, one has 5 cubes, and one has 5 circles. And you
Are we in 3D?
yes, we're in
Cylinders? Spheres? I don't know what a circle
sphere.
is. Okay,
Sorry.
Thanks.
And then on the scale, you say, okay, all of these things have 5 shapes. And then you ask the question, which one has the most shape? Like, which one has the most, like, volume within it? By putting it on the scale of shapes, by putting it on the scale of religion to logic, you've lost the aspect of which one has the most volume in it. It's going to go triangles, then spheres, then cubes, because that's the volume.
Wait, weren't there pyramids?
Yeah, sorry,
Oh,
pyramids.
my bad. No, you're good.
It's going to go pyramids.
Not the point.
It's going to go pyramids to spheres to cubes.
Okay.
Be-
Yeah, sure.
But by putting it on the scale of number of shapes, you've lost an essential quality that you need for a different question.
Right, but I'm not asking a different question. I'm asking a very specific question. So I'm trying to make a scale that fits that question.
But I think what Finian's saying is that
Yeah.
what you've lost is the answer.
Yeah.
Okay, then describe it. What have I lost?
I don't know because you put it on the scale.
Well, what is missing from my scale? If you can't tell me, then we can't have. Yeah, but then we can't have a conversation on it if you can't describe what we're lacking from the conversation. Like
You're
don't
missing.
know
you're just
what you
saying
don't
you're just
know.
saying okay, you're oversimplifying. Okay,
It's the whole thing
to
of like,
do
oh, you
to
don't
do
know
almost
what you
any
lost.
thinking, I feel like we have to simplify it to some extent. I'm saying okay, we make this simplification. Tell me what's wrong with it, and let's try to improve it.
It's oversimplified.
In what way?
You are so when we talk about religion, when I say religion, it is the simplification of the entirety of like every single human interaction in a church, a mosque, a synagogue, down into the word religion. Whatever that might be per person, that is what happens when I say religion and it conjures up an image in your mind.
Well, what if I actually define what I mean when I mean this scale? I'm talking about logic versus belief.
Okay.
From that, if I were to, right, I should have defined that better. If I were to
Okay.
define it as logic and belief,
Mhm.
now I can put everything on that scale. Can I not?
No.
Why not? I mean,
Where-
I might not know.
where does-
I'm guessing on a lot
Where
of
does blue set on the scale from logic to
100%
What about
logic.
when logic and belief aren't on ends?
yeah, like, but I'm colorblind. My blue is
No,
different
I-
from your blue.
That's my
I'd
main
argue you
critique
can
is
do that.
when our logic and belief, because there are times when they are not counterintuitive, like they
Give an
align. What
example.
about those moments? Well, there are moments where people, like, and I'm not talking about every religious belief, but there are times when things happen, and maybe a belief in something slightly mystical is the logical answer.
It is logical. It is logical
on the
for someone to
circumstances.
find solace in religion when a tragedy happens. Like it's logical for someone
That's a better example.
if if something horrible happens in their life, it is logical for them to go and seek help, whatever that may be. And that might be in religion or in belief. So having those two things on two different sides of this scale reduces it too much.
But you really don't think, for the sake of this conversation, we could make a scale that says it rains because of water and the whole physical
Water
process,
cycle,
or it rains because God is mad. You don't just
No,
for
you
the sake of an argument. Do you think we can do that?
Yes.
What I'm understanding.
Be very careful about what you're putting on the scale.
I'm just arguing. I just feel like
I think we're caught up in
your point of
semantics.
contention. Yeah, your point of, it starts to feel like semantics. It feels like, okay, you're right. No model is perfect. Gravity isn't perfect. No model is perfect. But can we use this model just because it might be helpful for this
pure
conversation?
rationale versus zealotry. I think that's what he's just trying to get at.
Yeah, basically. Can we if we were to do that, would you give me the concession of making a scale that can do that for the sake of an argument? Or is that too much?
That's too much.
Okay.
No, because if we're going to talk about these extremely, extremely deep concepts like free will, we can't oversimplify them, even if it's for a metaphor.
You always can. You can, just for making a specific point about anything, you can make as much simplification as necessary.
I think he's just trying to say they're bad assumptions.
Then you can take a look at the overall point and say, okay, were there too many simplifications made to get here? And then I think it's even more helpful to say, what were those simplifications? How can we make the model better? All I'm hearing is that it's not a perfect model. I'm aware of that. I'm just saying, for right now, for making this point, I think it's a useful model. And if you can't find specific ways that it isn't, then what use is it to just continue to say, well, it's not a perfect model? Like, what's the actual, is there any utility to this point, or is it just being contrarian? No, I understand it's coming from. I understand the idea you're coming from. I just don't really see how it's.
The point for me is to say, if we're going to be talking about these things that need exact specifics, like, is there or is there not free will? If we are going to start reducing things, it will lose aspects of it that we won't be able to find out until it's too late.
Then how can we talk about it?
I actually want to defend.
We're trying to.
I want to defend Liam here.
Okay.
I think he was laying out a scale for a very specific subset of a point. I have no problem with it. That's kind of my take.
Well, and I don't like, if I can't do that, then how can we begin to have a logical conversation?
Yeah,
if you're stuck on the point of we can't totally encapsulate this conversation, so we shouldn't touch it.
No,
then why
I'm
even have
not
this conversation?
saying that you shouldn't touch on it. I'm saying that you have to understand that when you do simplify it, you are losing an aspect to it.
Great, I agree. Yeah, every model is imperfect. There's no perfect model. I have that understanding.
And you have to acknowledge the fact that after you do that, whatever conclusion you draw from the scale that you've put down, you have to say that there is this other point that is still valid.
And you can't tell me what that point is.
Liam's crafting the ideal gas law of free will right here. I think that's what we're getting at.
I can't tell you right now because it's a general proclamation. Like, if you give me an example, then I'll be able to be like, oh, but you can't say that this isn't true, given your example. You can't say with absolute certainty that your counterexample isn't.
Let's just go to the example for a second. Brendan, you put it. I put it as logical versus belief. You put it a different way. Like
I just thought it was slightly better wording.
Yeah, no, what was it? I liked it.
Oh,
it
was pure rationale to zealotry.
Rationale to zealotry. That's great. Let's just stick with that just for a minute.
We've refined the scale.
Rationale and zealotry. Where is doing everything in your life to please God in that scale? Can we put that closer to zealotry?
Yeah, it's probably a 0.8.
If we're doing from 0 to 1, this is a normalized scale.
No, negative 1 to 1.
Yeah, I like negative 1 to 1.
Negative.
Yeah, if we're doing a normal scale, yeah, 0's in the middle.
Okay. Oh, sure. My bad. Yeah. Totally.
Let's go to 0 to 10 though. That's people like that.
Wait,
scale.
what happened to the negative?
Whoa.
Negative 10 to 10?
Well,
I think it's just an easier scale that for people to understand. Is 5 is average. 50. I think right. Like
what's in the middle? Like, what's
Five.
on each side?
Okay, so yeah,
Sorry,
you
not
have
the- zealotry.
on one side you have zealotry, which is like everything
That
is
can be 10.
everything is
That'll
in
be 10.
pursuit
All
of
right,
pleasing
I'm looking
God.
for numbers.
Sounds good. Everything is in pursuit of pleasing God. That's 10, and 0 is everything is just logical. I have
Scientific, logical. Like
yeah,
okay.
scientific, logical. There's no free will. Everything is just coming from a series of events.
Okay.
I think you could even say on this side, you can logically say you can state what you know and you don't know. I don't know that there's no God. I can't come up with a logical argument
And
for there being God, but I also can't prove there isn't.
yeah, which means that the absolute like zealotry point could be logical. If there is a God, it makes total sense to cater everything towards them.
Right, but my point is everything else we do in logic points us away from God, in my opinion. Because there's no like everything we can figure out. Like there's a reason that we think we know how rain works. There's like tons of reasons. Like we have a bunch of science. We have a bunch of models we've come up with. I'm saying that is on the opposite side of the scale from believing God. I think to be able to put that on a side of a scale that's a 0 or 1 and say that a 9 or a 10 is on the other side and that's believing in God.
But
I think that's useful for this model.
I can take that example and say all of those factors are controlled by some otherworldly being.
So when I say rain is determined by a bunch of scientific stuff, and I put that as a 0-1, and I put rain is because God's unhappy, and I put that as a 9 or 10. Can you, let's say it's an SAT question. Can you, in your mind, think about what the rule might be that I'm using to put those there?
Yes, I totally can understand.
That's all that's needed for this. That's all that's needed. Because yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think the problem is that you guys disagree with what the definition of logical is, because you're coming from the perspective that logical is like scientific, following the rules of logic, and Finian is saying it is logical to be religious. That's where you guys are disagreeing, right?
Yeah, but I'm
saying
that's
that
why
as
I'm
a
saying if we redefine it, I think we can say that I'm not even going to tell you what the rule is.
No,
I think you can just guess based on where I'm putting it 0 and 1 and what I'm putting at 10. I think you can guess what
I
a
don't
rule
think you're
is.
using the scale right.
You don't think so?
I think it should be
You're doing
-5
science
and 5.
versus religion.
Yeah.
Sure.
I don't think you're doing rationale versus
You've lost an
zealotry.
aspect of putting it on a scale.
That's the thing I would say.
Okay.
The way you're treating the scale is science versus religion. You're not doing rationale versus zealotry.
Would you give me a 0 and a 10 for rationale and zealotry?
Well, I would say rationale is the cold, unfeeling calculation, and zealotry is pure belief in spite of facts that might point otherwise.
Can you put
Can
you put rain comes from the physical process?
I don't know if you guys have watched
makes
Monty
rain.
Python.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's the whole thing where, if you throw the witch in the lake and she sinks, she's not a witch, but if she floats, she's a witch because she's made of wood.
Yeah.
Right. So she
That doesn't
dies
make
either way.
sense. In spite of evidence, that doesn't make sense. I would put that
And the
towards
whole
the
scale of,
zealotry
like,
end.
oh,
Sure.
she's lighter
But-
than a duck or something.
I just don't think you're using the scale right. Is all I was really
Okay,
getting
So
at.
you're losing an
could you put-
aspect by putting
Could you
it on
put
a scale.
the items that I had on the scale?
So,
Or could you?
yes,
do you,
yes,
Brendan,
yes.
do you understand? Do you understand the idea I'm
So
trying
scale.
to encapsulate?
I like
Could you
negative 1 to 1, so I'm going to use negative 1
Okay,
to
we'll
1.
use negative 1 to 1.
So,
Oh my goodness.
I would put your two things at I would
maybe-
put them
how
on
about this?
opposite ends of 0.
Would you come up with your negative 1 and your 1 for this? I mean, I think you were doing that a second ago.
Yeah, no,
I don't really
I'm
care
doing
what they
rationale
are.
and zealotry. I'm
Okay.
doing faith in spite of everything,
Right.
and then pure calculation in spite of belief.
Great.
Okay.
That's wonderful. Okay, let's go with that.
And I would say that, yeah, I would put both of them at maybe negative 0.5 and 0.5.
Great.
Yes,
Well,
they
we
are.
won't
They
even
are on other
define the
ends.
extremes,
They are
yeah.
on other ends because evidence points one way, but I believe the rain god is mad, or science suggests that it's raining because of condensation in the atmosphere, but no. That's the 2 points that I would use for the scale. Is I would say it's one in spite of the other are the two ends.
Okay.
How did we get from free will to talking about?
Oh, that's-
Stream of
I'm about to show you,
consciousness. This is
actually.
what we were looking for.
Yeah.
I think I'm taking the extreme on one side of that scale. I think I'm just trying to look at it. I'm basically saying, okay, how far to the just doing things or believing things based on the best understanding we know about the world and mechanics and philosophy, like our best understanding of everything in logic, if we take it to that as much as possible, I feel like that ultimately ends up being very similar to my argument. And what I'm just trying to argue is that any addition of free will, adding some point of contention in that, some point of, well, there's complete logic, but living as though we're a little farther on that scale to the zealotry, I think is what it is. I think it's just farther. I think it's farther from the absolute logic, and I'm just trying to make the argument that living in the absolute logic side can encapsulate most of the ideas in the rest of the scale, if you just have the right idea about them.
I would say that yes, you place yourself at point one with the downsides that comes with.
Point one.
Because -1. You're at -1.
We could just use 0 to 10.
Whatever. Okay.
Let's not
you're
change
at-
it
Yeah,
again.
yeah, sure.
No, we need another scale.
No,
Let's go
-1,
-5
-1.
to 5.
All right,
No,
the
okay.
log. Of,
No, you're.
Okay,
But
-1.
you place yourself at that far end
Sure.
in spite of the other, and that's the thing that I'm trying to say is that neither end is perfect.
Sure.
One is in spite of fact, and the other one is in spite of belief, in spite of what you know. And I choose to place myself somewhere slightly positive
okay.
because I just think that like the beauties of life, the wondrous things that we have, these fantastic interactions, opportunities, the choices we've made, the horrible things we've done, should be due to some belief. And I kind of said earlier, the human element. I think that there's this human element that just I don't equate to science. That I don't involve in science. I don't try to put them together. These are separate spheres. And in spite of, the evidence that we are probably some cold calculating box of chemicals, there is something kind of wondrous and beautiful going on. And I will choose to cherish that. And that's just where I've placed myself. I think that's what I've garnered from this is that it's like at the end of the day, we're all kind of, on similar trajectories. We're doing stuff. We can interact in similar ways. It's just where you've chosen to put yourself on the scale, which way you're kind of facing.